Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a true story that is so incredibly disturbing, it literally changed the entire landscape of modern horror. We are talking about the chilling case of Ed Gein, better known to history as the Butcher of Plainfield. We're going to examine the undeniable facts of the investigation, the psychological fractures of a deeply troubled man, and of course, the gruesome discoveries that completely shocked the world. Now, to really grasp the impact of this case, you've got to look at the setting. Just 700. That was the entire population of Plainfield, Wisconsin, back in the 1950s. This was a tiny, tight-knit community. Everyone knew everyone, and the crime rate was basically zero. It was the kind of place where people literally left their doors unlocked at night. And that's exactly what makes the horrors that were about to be uncovered there so stark and jarring. So the inciting incident kicks off on November 16, 1957. Right around 5 p.m., Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden shows up at the local hardware store owned by his mother, Bernice Warden. To his total surprise, the store is locked up tight. When he finally gets inside, his absolute worst nightmare starts to unfold. He finds fresh bloodstains scattered across the floor, pretty clear signs of a struggle dragging toward the back door, and a .22 caliber gun missing from the display rack. But the smoking gun here? The store's logbook. The very last entry showed a purchase of antifreeze by a local guy named Ed Gein. Now, to the town, Ed Gein was just this quiet, kind of harmless dimwit. He just kept to himself out on this deserted, rusty farmhouse on the edge of town. But Sheriff Arthur Schley and Deputy Warden, they had to follow the lead. When they rolled up to Gein's property, the door was open, but Ed was nowhere to be found. And as soon as Sheriff Schley stepped foot inside, he was hit by a stench and a physical heaviness in the air that was so overwhelmingly putrid, he literally had to step right back outside and vomit. They weren't stepping into a home, they were stepping into a waking nightmare. The property was immediately dubbed the House of Horror, and this brilliantly, or terribly, illustrates why. Shining their flashlights into the pitch black, the police felt like they were descending straight into hell. I mean, they found human skulls adorning the 4 bedposts and others hollowed out to be used as regular soup bowls. They discovered furniture, belts, even wastebaskets crafted entirely out of human skin and bones. Over in a corner, there was this terrifying face mask made from the skin of Mary Hogan, a local woman who had just vanished without a trace in 1954. In the kitchen, human parts were literally boiling in a pot on the stove, sitting right alongside the remains of 9 different women stored in the fridge. And perhaps the most disturbing thing of all, they found a woman's suit meticulously crafted from human skin, designed so whoever wore it could physically take the form of a woman. Section 1. The Making of a Monster. A Childhood of Abuse and Isolation. To even begin to comprehend how a human being could commit atrocities like this, we have to look back at the environment that warped his young mind. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, and was instantly trapped in a wildly toxic family dynamic. His father, George, was an abusive alcoholic who mercilessly beat his family. On the flip side was his mother, Augusta. She was fiercely religious, incredibly controlling, and held a bitter, deep-seated hatred for her husband, which she often projected right onto her kids. And then you had his older brother, Henry, who occasionally pushed back against their mother's rigid worldview, a defiance that, well, would eventually lead to a very dark end. Augusta literally viewed the outside world as a sinkhole of filth and sin. Driven by this intense paranoia, she actually moved the family out to that remote Plainfield farmhouse specifically to isolate her sons. She would read them Bible stories for hours on end, but not the nice ones about love or peace. No, terrifying tales of sin, hell, and death. She relentlessly hammered into Ed's mind that the outside world was impure and that all women were inherently sinful. She punished him severely for even trying to make a friend, basically ensuring that she remained the absolute center of his totally isolated universe. But then, the pillars of that little universe started to collapse in rapid succession, leaving Ed completely alone. In 1940, his father passes away. Then, in 1944, his brother Henry dies while they were burning brush out on the farm. Now, what's genuinely chilling here is that Henry officially died of asphyxiation, but he had a severe head injury that the police just completely ignored at the time, probably because Henry had been making plans to move away and was vocally speaking out against their mother. And finally, in December of 1945, the fatal blow to Ed's sanity, Augusta dies of a stroke. With Augusta gone, Ed's mind totally shattered. He turned that farmhouse into an isolated temple. He meticulously boarded up all the rooms his mother used, basically preserving them like a pristine shrine, and he just retreated to this small, dingy little bedroom near the kitchen. Left completely alone with his warped thoughts, he spent hours and hours reading magazines that detailed World War II German atrocities and horrifying medical experiments on human organs. The spark of his madness had well and truly been ignited. Section 2, Crimes and Confessions, the Descent into Complete Madness. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because about 18 months after his mother's death, sitting alone in that silent, creepy house, Ed started to hear whispers. Driven by an extreme, absolute delusional obsession to bring his mother back to life, he grabs a pickaxe and a shovel and heads to the local cemetery. Step 1, exhuming corpses. He actually started by digging up his own mother's rotting body to find some twisted kind of piece. Step 2, severing parts. He took heads back to his farmhouse to just sit and talk to them, pretending his mother was only asleep. But that wasn't enough. He wanted to feel her presence on his own physical body. So step 3, he systematically robbed over 9 graves, cleanly removing the skin from female corpses, drying it out, and sewing it together to craft a skin suit, so he could literally become his mother. Now, when the police finally arrested Ed outside his farmhouse in 1957, the guy showed absolutely zero fear. And the details of his confession are just bizarre. He sat in total dead silence for 30 straight hours. He only agreed to talk after making this weird, childish demand. He wanted a slice of apple pie topped with cheddar cheese. And once he ate it, he just calmly confessed. He admitted to shooting tavern owner Mary Hogan back in 1954 and the hardware store owner Bernice Warden in 1957. But while he freely confessed to the grave robberies and those 2 specific murders, he firmly denied having anything to do with 4 other local disappearances, including teenagers Evelyn Hartley and Georgia Weckler. So those cases are still shrouded in dark suspicion to this day. Section 3, Insanity and the Asylum, the Medical and Legal Aftermath. So the crucial point is that the public was totally out for blood. They were demanding justice for the monster who had shamed humanity. But the legal reality all hinged on his psychological evaluation. Doctors officially diagnosed Ed Gein with schizophrenia. And this wasn't just a label on a piece of paper. It was a profound break from reality. He was experiencing severe auditory and visual hallucinations. In his mind, Augusta wasn't really dead. She was actively speaking to him, directly guiding his horrific actions from beyond the grave. On top of that, medical professionals diagnosed him with necrophilia, a pathological attraction to the dead, because his mental illness was so severe that he fundamentally could not understand the gravity or the reality of his crimes. The judge ruled that he was completely unfit to stand trial. So instead of being thrown into a traditional prison cell, Ed Gein was sent away to a high-security mental asylum. And then we get this really fascinating, almost cinematic footnote to the story. The town of Plainfield obviously wanted to erase this nightmare from their history, but just one day before the farmhouse was scheduled to be auctioned off, it mysteriously burned completely to the ground. Nobody was ever caught. A lot of locals whisper that it was either outraged neighbors taking matters into their own hands or, perhaps the dark, evil forces of the house destroying its own secrets forever. Ed Gein's actual life ended surprisingly quietly, in stark contrast to the absolute chaos of his crimes. After a decade in the asylum, he was finally declared fit for trial in 1968. He was found guilty of Bernice Warden's murder, but legally ruled not guilty by reason of insanity. So he was sent right back to the Mendito Mental Health Institute, where he lived out the rest of his days pretty peacefully until July 26, 1984, when he died of heart and respiratory failure at the age of 77. Section 4, A Terrifying Cultural Legacy, the Birth of Modern Horror. Now, what's really interesting about this is that while Ed Gein died, his shadow definitely did not. The gruesome details released to the media permanently scarred the American psyche and honestly completely rewired the entertainment industry. The Butcher of Plainfield basically gave birth to modern cinematic horror. Think about it. Norman Bates in Sacco, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs, all of these iconic, terrifying characters were directly inspired by Ed Gein's real-world atrocities. And that dark fascination hasn't slowed down at all. It continues right into the modern day, especially with the upcoming 2025 Netflix series, Monster: The Ed Gein Story. Which leaves us with a really provocative thought. Decades later, with all we know about the gruesome horrors he committed, why are we all still so captivated by the dark secrets of Plainfield?
Is it just some morbid curiosity about the depths of human madness? Or is it the truly terrifying realization that the most unspeakable monsters can sometimes look exactly like the quiet, harmless neighbor next door? Keep seeking the truth behind the stories, and we'll see you in the next explainer.